Hey friends, guess what we're doing today? We are not in my garden for once. We are actually at the Tufts University Community Garden and watching a few of our Yankee Dahlia Society members speak about their garden plot and how they planted here the dahlias. And I'm excited to show you here around and just see something else in my garden at all times, so let me know if this is interesting to you. We had a little bit of trouble with the lighting conditions recording it, so apologize for some strange lighting conditions here, but I hope it's interesting. And if you're local, you should definitely check out the Yankee Dahlia Society here. It's a really, really great garden club for all the dahlia addicts around.
Hello, y'all, and welcome to our community garden here, Tufts Community Garden. So my name is Peter Heller, and I have a plot here. I've actually had the plot for 30 years. This is my 30th season growing in the plot, and I'm one of the coordinators. I've been a coordinator here for 20 years, sometimes on my own and sometimes with others. And now I have 3 wonderful people helping me. So I'm going to just give you a little overview, history of the garden, and just sort of what's different about it being an urban community garden. Say a little bit about that, and then hand it over to Karen here, who's going to talk about what the whole Tufts Pollinator Initiative and a research project she led at the garden here this summer, which is really exciting and really well integrated with what the garden does. So let's see, so our community garden. So this is one of about 14 community gardens in Somerville. Somerville is one of the most densely populated cities in the United States. It has very little green space. In the 1930s, it was the most densely populated city in the United States. So you just think of all these immigrant families crammed into 3-deckers, and that it's still really dense. So things like green space or the ability to garden is not something to take for granted. And we don't have enough community gardens in the city. We've got 14 of them. Most of them are in city land. This one is on Tufts land, as you can see. And Tufts, just as part of building better connections between the university and the city, remember they don't pay taxes, they do make this land available to community members to garden. So we've got, and then in the back area behind, there's a student-run garden. But this fenced-in area here is our Tufts Community Garden. And it's actually, the legend is, this might be an urban legend and it might be truth, that it was started as a victory garden in World War II, which is really cool. Because this land that we're on, if you look at real estate maps from 1900, this was all called Tufts College land, Tufts College farmland. So they were actually, Tufts had all this land here. Somerville wasn't as fully developed, and they were actually growing crops here. So this has been farmland for a long time, and in particular, for Somerville, it's rare, the soil is lead-free. Most of the land in Somerville is just crammed with lead from all the lead paint that's been used, but the land here is in good shape because it was just Tufts farmland. And originally, the community garden was where that dorm is, but then they put that dorm up in the late 80s and moved the garden to here. And one of our gardeners, Jim, who's kind of the elder statesman of the garden, he was part of the garden when it moved, and he laid out all the new plots. So, and he knows where all the water lines are. He has the history. So we have 29 gardeners, and some of them, Jim's been gardening here for probably 40 years, and I've been gardening for 30. Some other people are new this year, or have just been doing it for a few years. Somerville has a very transient population, as you know. Whenever I go elsewhere in the country and meet people, they're always like, oh yeah, my son lived in Somerville for a year. So everybody's lived in Somerville for a year, it seems. So some of them get to garden here. Now, in fact, it takes about 3 years on the wait list to get a plot. There's so many people who want community garden spots in Somerville and so few available. We've got about 45 people on our wait list. But the thing is, because it's such a transient population in Somerville, every year when we get a couple empty plots, you have to go through 10 names to find 1 or 2 people who are still in Somerville. and then we give them a plot. So, and it's a wonderfully diverse group of gardeners. I mean, in advance of this talk, I was thinking of the countries people come from. So we've got the UK, we've got Ghana, we've got Sicily. It's not a country, but you know what I mean. We've got China, we've got Lebanon, So there's just an incredible range of people and languages that get spoken here. And it's a real place of mixing. It's the place in my life where I have friends who didn't go to college, which means a lot to me to have that kind of diversity in my collection of people I hang out with. So let's see. So that's it about the garden, and maybe I'll just say a little bit about me and dahlias. So I've been growing dahlias for about 12 years or so, and it started small, and I was trying to grow them at my house where I don't get full sun, and they were not very successful, and I started planting them here, and they did a lot better where I do get full sun. And it's just, you know, as I'm sure you're familiar with, it's an addiction. So there's just every year I gotta go, I want to try that one. I can't let go of that one. I want to try this one. So there's just always more and more. And so in the war between, the space war between dahlias and tomatoes, the dahlias have definitely won, because you got to grow tomatoes. And let's see. And I did want to, and my tubers come from all over. I gave you a little map of them, which I do, you know, I'll just say a little bit about my process. So the map you're seeing was all done digitally, but right before the season starts, I do by hand, like with paste up. I print out photos of each dahlia variety I'm going to grow, and then I just play with arranging them so that you get certain like rainbow effects or the colors move in nice ways. And I try to arrange them from shortest in kind of the front corner, that's the front right corner, from shortest here to highest around here. And that's like with gardening, right? You try it, you have an idea, and then you do it, and nature does what it's going to do. So, so the heights vary. Some of the plants don't make it. Other ones go crazy. So it's always a little different from what I've planned, but you got to have a plan. So anyway, so that's my process for making it. And then the other thing, I'll just, over there, you might notice it as you walk by. I just wanted to, actually I'm going to bring them over and show you the soil amendments I use. So at the beginning of the season, there's, I stir in a bunch of compost and also coir, which is, peat-free organic material that'll help lighten up the soil and make it drain better. So I do that when at the time of planting my tubers, I put some bone meal in, and then thanks to the Yankee Dahlia Society, I get my Best Buds mycorrhizal inoculant, and this stuff is incredible. It's just, it's this fine little powder that are these spores for mycorrhizal fungi, and I put some in with every tuber, and the root production is incredible. And that's both makes for a healthy plant, and it helps make for more tubers, since the tubers are, after all, fattened roots, storage roots. So and I use it on all my planting now, because this is just, the likelihood of success with the plant just goes up with using this. And then over the course of the season, I'll use, fish emulsion. And I've been using this more this summer, just trying to boost some of the blooms, because things were slow to bloom. And then starting at the end of July, I've just done the last couple of years, but it really works. This is langbeanite. The key part is potassium sulfate. It's sulfur, potassium, and magnesium. And so it's a mineral fertilizer, and it helps. It's high in potassium. It's 0020, and it's to foster tuber production. So I apply this once a month, end of July, end of August, sometimes in early September too. And it just, the level of tuber production went through the roof with using this stuff. So I'm probably going to be selling some tubers online in the spring, and thanks to Sulpo Mag.
Like Peter said, I'm Karen. I've been around here for more than a year. I did my undergrad at Tufts and started a master's degree this last spring, so I'm on my second semester, and I love the area and really found a passion for ecological research and getting involved with the community through TPI. So I'm going to talk to you about that today. But we can start first by, what do people associate with pollinators? You can shout some answers out, but what do you think a pollinator is when you think of pollinators? Bee, good. Anything else? Butterflies?
Not anything that flies.
Yeah. So that's, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, so pollinators visit flowers. Flowers can't move, as we know, and they need a way to reproduce, and so they've evolved methods such as wind, but also by using insects, by making themselves more attractive to them, and so insects visit them and visit other flowers and move pollen around like that. So we like to categorize pollinators in like the big five, and that's what we look for when we tend to go around gardens. So bees, like we said, butterflies and moths, flies as well, wasps, and beetles. So there's some stuff that you wouldn't necessarily consider, but that are important pollinators as well. So we can pass our lovely bee box around if you want to go in a circle. But you can see also the typical bee that you picture in your mind. It's probably either a honeybee or something black and yellow. But there's a lot of variety out there, especially native pollinators that are native to this area. So these are all native pollinators, or mostly. And they come in different shapes, sizes, colors. So there's a lot of variety out there in your garden. And we really encourage at TPI to kind of take a moment to just observe and think about what you see. And even if you spend 2 to 5 minutes looking at some flowers, looking at your dahlias, for example, you can see just a lot of different pollinators passing by. So that's our main message. And we also, so pollinators are very important, and that's what we like to educate people on. In order to have important food crops, for example, the plants need to be able to reproduce, and they rely on pollinators for that. So they're important for food production. They're also very important for just ecosystem services in general. They provide food for birds, bats, and other animals, and again, they pollinate the flowers to help plants reproduce. So I'm going to talk about an example that many of you probably know. That's the monarch butterfly, a very charismatic butterfly that's native to North America. And we have a larger population over here on the East Coast. And they come from even north up in Canada, and they fly all the way down to central Mexico every winter to overwinter in central Mexico. So it's a very incredible insect. They fly up to 1,500 or 2,500 miles, and they do that multi-generationally. So it's a circle, so it's hard to figure out the start point. But the generation right now that you would see, maybe we'll see some today, is on their way down to central Mexico right now. So they live multiple months, and they group together in fir trees down in Mexico, stay warm, they nectar nearby, and then they fly back up to around Florida, southern Texas, and they lay eggs and create a new generation. And that new generation moves up the US to their northern range, and they lay eggs there and create a new generation there. And that generation is the summer generation that creates the great-great-great-grandchildren that then fly back down to Mexico. So it's a very cool process, and it's also a very interesting insect to look at because they require more than just nectar. They require a host plant. So their larvae, their caterpillars, which are the baby monarchs, cannot survive without milkweed, which is a very specific plant. You've probably heard of it and maybe planted it, but their caterpillars won't eat anything else. And so when you're planting a garden, you need to consider different aspects of an insect's life in order to support insects. So you want to include nectar, you want to include pollen, so flowers, but also if you want to support monarchs, for example, you would want to include their host plant as well. TPI is about just kind of bringing the community in and encouraging the creation of pollinator habitat, but also encouraging the spread of passion and love for pollinators. And so we're also very the point is not to have to transform your entire garden into a pollinator habitat. You can start small. You can start just by planting some flowers. Obviously, you guys have all done that. But there's some dahlias, for example, that are more pollinator friendly than others. The open center dahlias have the pollen more readily accessible. I've seen them in your garden. As we were doing our research, I would see the bees that I was looking at all on Peter's dahlias and not on my flowers, so they do love those. And then the most important thing too is, as the starting point, is to just not apply pesticides on your garden. And those two things are already like huge for creating pollinator habitat. And then the next jumping points are you can start planting native plants. We encourage that just because native plants are used to the area that they're native to, so they are more adapted to the environment and use less water too. And so our gardens are planted with native plants to this area, and even like hyper native because we've grown them from seed over the course of our time here at Tufts. TPI is also about trying to get the community involved in easy ways. So if that's giving away some very inexpensive plants or some free seeds, that's a way for us to kind of give back with the land that we have that's accessible to us through Tufts. So.
Look at that beautiful patch from our member here. All the dahlias. Aw, look at that. I think this is the fancy pants. This is our Yankee Dahlia Society tuber, which everybody got.
You're growing great. You picked some real beauties. It was like, wow, this is a person.
Isn't it gorgeous? They're also tall. Yeah, right. So I am here with our organizers from the Yankee Dahlia Society and Peter, who was so nice to walk us through the plot today here at Tufts University Community Garden. So I wanted to have Misty and Carol talk a little bit about the Yankee Dahlia Society, because I know I have a lot of local YouTube followers here who love to see local content. So Misty, up to you.
Hello, welcome. I'm Misty and this is Carol, and we're from Yankee Dahlia Society, and Peter is a member of Yankee Dahlia Society, and we co-founded the organization in 2021. We're a dahlia group, a group of really gardeners that love dahlias but are enthusiastic about a lot of different plants, and we are a club of members that you can join annually any time of the year, but we run our membership for a year, and we offer different types of programming throughout the year. So we alternate from wonderful Zoom programming to in-person meetings like today, where we got to meet with Peter, our club member, who did our presentation today, specifically on Tufts Community Garden, and we had a pollinator, Karen from the Tufts Pollinator Initiative, yep, and she spoke on pollinators. And we are going to have we have an annual bloom exhibit that's coming up this time of year in 2 weeks, where we're going to have dahlias on display, right, Peter?
That's right.
And we have a lot of fun.
Yes. We have a lot of fun.
We'll probably have dahlias from this garden on
Dahlias
display
from this
there.
garden, and then we end up having tubers, and we share the love of dahlias and growing dahlias, and And really we end up talking about a lot of different things, right, Peter?
But you guys totally spread the love. Right? Spread the love of dahlias. I mean, I can't think of I can't count the number of tubers I've gotten from y'all, the number of things I've learned and been introduced to. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's really a wonderful community.
I agree.
Love having you, Steph, as a member. It's so
thank you.
fun. And
How many members do we have right now?
yeah, so we have over 100 members in the club, and then periodically people are able to participate, more or less during certain times of the year, and that's fine. And we love seeing everybody when they can, and then of course we follow everybody on social media in between, right?
Right.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we just went to the national show, so we're part of the national organization of dahlia growers, and that's been a wonderful community as well. So
Wonderful.
yeah.
It's really a fun society, which I can just recommend to join. Personally, what I love as well is it's a nice age, distribution and range. So it's very diverse in that regard, which I personally love.
We have new growers and experienced growers.
Yes, it's really nicely mixed. So if you get a chance, I have everything in the description below. Check it out and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer those in the comments.
Yeah, we'd love to see you. Yeah, thanks, Steph.
So I hope this video, a little bit of a different kind of video, was interesting to you, especially if you're here local in Massachusetts. You should really check out the Yankee Dahlia Society, and if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below, and as per usual, subscribe and watch another video. Thank you.